We still have some people joining in. So as we kind of wait another minute or so, welcome to the second annual Heritage Day presented by the Thurston County Historic Commission. Please feel free to put your name, organization, and favorite rainy day beverage into the chat. And like I said, we'll give it another 30 seconds or a minute, and then we'll get started here. Thank you all for joining us. Okay, it's great to see people entering into the chat. I would have to say that I am Grace Edwards. I have the honor of being one of the members on the Thurston County Historic Commission. And definitely for me, especially this time of year, pumpkin spice lattes are my absolute favorite thing to drink. So thank you again all for joining us, and as people come in, please feel free to enter your name, organization, and favorite rainy day drink into the chat. And so we'll go ahead and get started. Just a couple quick housekeeping things. Again, my name is Grace Edwards, member of the Thurston County Historic Commission, and this is the second annual Heritage Day event that we're putting on. Hopefully one of these years we'll be able to actually meet in person. I know COVID has kind of had other plans for us the past 2 years, but you know, hopefully next year. But we really do appreciate you being with us today virtually. This meeting is being recorded, and so I can talk a little bit more about that at the end of the meeting, but just so you're aware, it is being recorded. And we are doing this event as a webinar. So what that means is that as participants, you won't be able to have your video or audio on, but if you have any questions or you know, any information that you'd like to share, please feel free to pop that information into the chat feature. If you kind of scroll to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little talking bubble, and that will allow you to you know, communicate with us, and you know, we'll be monitoring the chat throughout the meeting. You do see some folks on the screen, so those are the members of the Historic Commission and our guest speaker today. And just a reminder to those folks to please mute yourselves as we go through this meeting. And also, if there are any sort of bandwidth issues or anything like that, please feel free to have your camera off. We have the amazing Sonia and Jeremy from the Thurston County Community and Economic Development Group who will be handling our IT stuff. They are absolutely amazing. And so feel free to reach out if you are having any sort of IT issues or anything like that, and we will hopefully get that sorted out for you. And so we have a pretty quick agenda for today for the next 55 minutes or so. We're going to have an introduction about the Thurston County Historic Commission, an update on the fantastic Water, Woods, and Prairie book, and then we're going to have a Thurston County Heritage Grant Program presentation. And then we're going to follow that with the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. And that's going to be presented by the wonderful Alex Gradwohl from the Washington Historic Preservation. And then we will do some Q&A, and then we will close out. And so without further ado, I would love to pass it to the chair of the Thurston County Historic Commission, Rob Kirkwood.
Hello all. I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement, we would like to acknowledge that the indigenous Salish people who have lived on and cared for the land and waterways in this region since time immemorial, and who still inhabit the area today, specifically the Squaxin Island, Nisqually, and Chehalis people, our sovereign tribal partners. The purpose of this acknowledgement is to disrupt ongoing erasure of injustices done and to remember history as a stepping stone towards healing. The Thurston County Historic Commission was established in 1984 by the Board of County Commissioners to promote the understanding and appreciation of the county's history and cultural resources. Our programs include historic register, grant programs, interpretive panels, public programs, review of development permits, and of course the annual birthday celebration. The Thurston County was established in 1852, and hence, by my math, this makes it our 169th birthday. And with that, I will pass it off to Sandy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you. One of the major projects of the Thurston County Historic Commission has been the production of a major Thurston County history book, Water, Woods, and Prairies. And I'd like to share just a little bit of background on that. And I'd like to move on to a little PowerPoint. Can you see this? Are we on?
Yes.
Okay, slideshow. So Water, Woods, and Prairies was initiated in 2012, and it covers the people who have lived here immemorial. The very first people, a background of the tribes, maritime history, and that's about water. The first European settlers, about the prairies, the history of communities, logging railroads, and that's the woods, and the industries, oysters, brewery, schools and education, and recent history. So if you want an overview, this is an excellent way to really have the history of Thurston County based on contributions by 17 different people. And it's a research-based coffee table edition, not for profit at all. And a special acknowledgement to the following people: Shirley Sterling, fellow editor, Shanna Stevenson for all of her hard work on this. The county staff who've been so supportive: Jeremy Davis, Sonia Cady, and others. The Thurston County Historic Commission and the Olympia Historical Society Bigelow House Museum. The work of Water, Woods, and Prairies has represented thousands of volunteer hours, and it really is a massive joint community effort. So we're off to press with our second printing. This will be available soon through the Olympia Historical Society Bigelow House Museum at olympiahistory.org. And I would be happy to answer any questions later at the end if you want more information about that. And now I'm very happy to introduce Jeremy Davis from Thurston County. He's the operations manager of I will let him tell him what the operations manager is, but we know he does an awful lot for us. So welcome, Jeremy Davis.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm Jeremy Davis, as Sandy said. I'm operations manager for the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. And I'm going to talk to you about our Heritage Grant Program and over 10 years of success and impactful grants by Thurston County for historic preservation and education. House Bill 1386 was enacted in 2005 to set aside $1 from each recording fee for historic preservation. The county created the Heritage Grant Program in 2009 and began issuing grants in 2010. To date, the county has approved over 50 grant applications, awarding over $458,000 for local heritage projects. which has been used in conjunction with over $1.2 million from other funds, donations, countless volunteer hours by historic preservationists in Thurston County. One of the first grants was the special 2010 exhibit by the Washington Historical Society, From Parlor to Podium, Terrestrial Suffragists of Olympia. The exhibit was offered in conjunction with the statewide commemoration of the passing of suffrage for women in Washington in 1920. The exhibit and many programs mark this important centennial in our state's history. This was an important educational activity which taught basic civic lessons on voting rights. The grant not only supported the exhibit installation, but also the educational programming that accompanied it. Students took on different roles and debated the issue of women voting using the information from the exhibit and materials provided by museum educators in a set of debate points. Then they all had a mock vote. Women receiving the right to vote was always the outcome. It was a really popular activity with the students. And thanks to the Heritage Grant, they provided these experiences to over 400 students in the spring of 2010 that participated in this special program. This next project was from around 2013. This was a grant to the Art Deco Society Northwest. It was also done in partnership with the Olympia Heritage Commission and the Olympia Downtown Association. With the grant money, they hired a local artist to restore the See America by Bus sign on the west wall of the bus depot downtown on Sylvester Park. This project was intended to spark local interest in the building and hopefully its preservation. The grant program has also provided funding to the Lacey Museum and Cultural Center for several projects, including the 2011-2012 digitizing and transcribing of the George Himes diary, in which he wrote from 1858 to 1890. George, born in 1844, of the prominent Lacey area Himes family, also part of the Ruddle family, was a member of the first wagon train over the Natchez Pass in 1853. He was a prominent historian of the Northwest and was a leader in establishing the Oregon Pioneer Association and a founding member of the Oregon Historical Society. A 2014 grant helped the purchase of the first database for the Lacey Museum, and a 2015 grant funded the development of a walking tour and brochure for the Lacey Historic Neighborhood. Lacey's historic neighborhood consists of the area located between St. Martin's University campus and includes properties from Bowker Street Southeast on the west to Carpenter Road Southeast on the east, and from 7th Avenue Southeast on the north to Pacific Avenue on the south. At the end of 2021, Dr. Thelma Jackson from the Northwest Institute for Leadership and Change will complete the Thurston County Oral Black History Project from 1950 to 1975. The Institute was founded by Dr. Jackson. Its mission is to effect positive change with a focus on the Northwest by enhancing and developing leaders, empowering communities for the next century. And thank you for being here today, Dr. Jackson. We appreciate your work in Thurston County history. So now I'm going to go ahead and play a short video that was provided to us today. So grants to the Olympia Historical Society Bigelow House Museum have helped to fund a number of improvements on the Bigelow House and its grounds. These include the 2010 installation of storm windows, the 2013 installation of an interpretive marker, the 2014 Gothic bedroom restoration, and 2016 second floor bedroom restoration for a display of Bigelow family memorabilia, and a 2015 chimney restoration, a 2018 front porch reconstruction, 2021 front porch step reconstructions, or south front porch steps, excuse me, and then the 2012 construction of new doors for the shed, and a 2020 re-roof of the shed and structural analysis. In 2014 and 2015, grants to the Olympia Brewhouse Foundation contributed to the creation of a mobile museum that replicates the top of the 1906 brewery tower. The mobile museum has appeared at various community events and has included exhibits of World War I in Thurston County, exhibits from the Squaxin Tribal Museum, and more. Now down to Southwest Thurston County. Grant funds have helped the Gate Community Club maintain and improve the Gate City Schoolhouse located in Rochester on Moon Road. The primary mission, duty, and purpose of the Gate Community Club is to promote the common interest of all members of the Gate, Washington community. The Gate Schoolhouse was built in 1910 on land donated by TV Mounts to serve the growing needs of Gate, housing grades 1 through 4. The schoolhouse is a classic example of the one-room schoolhouse built during that era. The town of Gate was established in 1881 and planted in 1890. The Northern Pacific Railway built a junction in Gate, and the town developed a thriving lumber industry. Much of the town of Gate was destroyed by fires in the 1900s, with major fires occurring in 1902 and 1918. Grants include the 2013 restoration and preservation of the schoolhouse exterior, 2015 to replace and repair light fixtures, the storage shed and back door, and a 2016 repair of the back porch and ceiling tiles. The YWCA Historic Preservation Project is to archive YWCA Olympia documents. This will include the founding documents, photographs, scrapbooks, public relations materials, artifacts, and more to the Washington Historical Society and the Washington Women's History Consortium. And here's some more pictures of YWCA historic items and memorabilia. The South Thurston Historical Society has used Heritage Grant funding to digitally preserve letters, photos, films, and artifacts located in local attics of all places. They've interviewed elderly Tenino citizens who remember Tenino in the 1940s and 1950s, which was the era before Interstate 5 bypassed Tenino. They are also developing a research library which is planned to be open to the public year-round instead of just seasonally. So this project included the preservation of Dr. Wichman's films from 1941 to 1963. The still shot on the left is of the Campbell store in 1941. The still shot on the right is of a middle school Tenino football game and the fans watching from the stands. And this was in the 1940s, before stadium lights allowed games to be played at night. They plan to produce these films onto items that can be sold in their gift shop. A 2020 grant to the city of Tenino has helped to restore a former Great Northern Railroad caboose, which will be used as a living history exhibit. Now, the final project I'm going to talk about a little bit about today, and believe me, there are many projects we could have brought in. We received a lot of information. We'd love to have shown them all today, but we can't. The next one is, and it's very germane to today, is the Sandman Foundation's use of heritage funds to restore the historic tug to Sandman. Funding has helped to renovate the electrical charging system, install a ground tackle system, a roof repair of the 1944 Caterpillar engine. Other projects have included dry dock maintenance and repairs, dry rot repairs. Again, all of the grantee submissions that we've seen today will be provided on the Thurston County Historic Commission website to show the citizens of Thurston County, our grantees, great work in furthering historic preservation and education in Thurston County. And again, I would have liked to have included all of the slides we received from our grantees, but we had over 70 different slide submissions. So we'll put all of those on our website for you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass the Zoom back to Tamara.
Hi there, my name is Tamara Hayes from the Thurston County Historic Commission, and I would have the honor of introducing Alexandra Gradwohl, the project manager for the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation. Alex manages a number of initiatives and special projects for the Washington Trust. Those include the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. She does special events, which include Vintage Washington, Valerie Stavinsky Holiday Benefit, the Youth Heritage Project, Revitalize Washington, and the annual statewide Preservation and Economic Development Conference. She is a recent transplant to the Pacific Northwest from DC, I believe, and prior to that, Ann Arbor, Michigan, though she did do her studies at University of Pennsylvania, where my mother went, and in Chicago, or she did at University of Pennsylvania and then went to Chicago's Loyola University for a master's in public history. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Tamara, for that introduction, and thank you guys so much for having me today. I was obviously hoping to see everybody in person, but next best thing, as Tamara mentioned, I help out with our conference around here, which we also just moved to fully virtual. So I know we're all getting to be pros at this whole pivoting thing. I'm going to try to keep my presentation relatively short so that folks have plenty of time to ask questions. Please do feel free to put things in the Q&A throughout, and I'll take a few breaks to answer questions throughout, so y'all just aren't listening to me talk constantly. Can everyone, just to confirm, can someone confirm that they can see my shared screen?
Yes.
Great,
yes.
Thank you. Was having some trouble with that earlier this week. Always a new problem with Zoom. So as Tamara said, my name is Alex Gradwohl. I work for the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation, and I'm the project manager for the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. So two very long names. The Washington Trust, if I know that we have some familiar faces on here, but for folks who don't know, we're a nonprofit organization dedicated to saving places that matter in Washington state and to promoting sustainable and economically viable communities through historic preservation. We are Washington's statewide nonprofit advocacy organization, so we like to help all of you and your fantastic work to build a collective ethic to preserve historic places through education, collaboration, and stewardship. So we really see ourselves as a potential partner, hopefully, for everyone on this call. So I'm just going to start off by giving a little bit of information on what is a National Heritage Area. This is a relatively new program for the West Coast, so I find that a lot of folks can just use a quick primer. So National Heritage Areas are designated by Congress as landscapes of national importance. They're a defined area that are recognized for a place where all different kinds of resources, so historic, cultural, scenic, environmental, all come together to form this really unique identity. They are supported by the National Park Service, but they are not national park units. The government does not assume any ownership or jurisdiction on the land. I know Greg on this call has heard me say this about 500 times, but they are not regulatory, and I like to say that at least twice in every conversation. Instead, National Heritage Areas build partnerships to better tell the stories of these important and unique places and support communities in maintaining and sharing their resources that make these regions so special. And each one, while supported by the National Park Service, is run locally. So they're facilitated by a local coordinating entity. And to give you a sneak preview, the Washington Trust is the local coordinating entity for the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. So this is a map of all the existing National Heritage Areas, including us. We have a total of 55 National Heritage Areas in the US. As you'll note, they are largely concentrated on the East Coast and in the Midwest. So they are pretty new to the West Coast here. Actually, so our heritage area, a second one in Washington, the Mountains to Sound Greenway, and the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta are the first three on the West Coast, and we were all designated in the same legislation in 2019. So we have a strong West Coast contingent going here now. So every heritage area in the country focuses on a unique cultural landscape, and so they all tell different stories. So you'll see, for example, one a little near and dear to my heart because my hometown is part of this is the Motor Cities National Heritage Area. So that tells the story of Southeast Michigan and the auto industry and music. You'll see the entire state of Tennessee is actually a National Heritage Area that talks about Civil War history. So each one focuses on something very different. And we, of course, as you probably can guess by the name, are focused on maritime heritage. So what kind of things are all of these heritage areas doing? I'm not going to read every box on the screen, but the point with this is that national heritage areas are very flexible. They're a flexible framework that can adapt to locally identified needs. They can support anything from historic preservation to economic development to environmental conservation, tourism, education, recreation, research. It's a very, very flexible framework, really just meant to listen to what communities need in order to celebrate, maintain, and share their unique heritage. So some things that most heritage areas will do are develop some kind of regional branding and do some marketing. Many will create websites centralizing information about what there is to do in the area, centralizing stories about that area. They'll partner on and fund projects to rehabilitate historic resources, operate small grant programs. So those are some things that you'll commonly find in heritage areas. But like I said, each one is a little different. Each one is pretty unique. So our National Heritage Area, the one that you all are now a part of, is the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. This is a long time coming. The feasibility study, which is kind of the argument for why this area is worthy of National Heritage Area designation, was written in 2010, but I know that efforts for this heritage area started much before that. And we finally received designation from Congress in 2019. So the heritage area, as you'll see on this map, in the areas in blue, it is 3,000 miles of coastline from the bottom of Grays Harbor County all the way to the Canadian border, and including Puget Sound. It includes 18 federally recognized tribes, 13 counties, 32 incorporated cities, and 30 port districts. And that's just kind of the big named government entities. We've got a lot of really fantastic resources and partners in this area. I do like to say that we are the first and only national heritage area in the country out of all of those 55 that's focused entirely on maritime heritage. Some other heritage areas tell really fantastic stories about maritime heritage and maritime history, but we are the only one that is focused entirely on maritime heritage. So some of the stories that we are trying to share through this heritage area are interpretive themes, are on the screen. They include canoe cultures, voyages of exploration, trade and commerce, water highways, securing our shores. So that's kind of a more of a military, natural resources and human impacts, cultures shaped by water, and for the love of water, which is about recreation. So as you'll see, very wide range of stories that we're looking to tell through this heritage area. So right now we are in the process of creating a management plan for this new program. It's a set of comprehensive policies and strategies for telling the stories of our maritime region and encouraging long-term resource protection, enhancement, interpretation, and funding. That is the Secretary of the Interior's definition of the management plan. I like to say it's a roadmap. It tells us what the heritage area is going to look like, what it's going to do, and how it's going to do it. We do have 3 years to complete it and submit it to the National Park Service for approval. And I did promise I would say this twice, it is non-regulatory. So the management plan includes, it's kind of a strategic plan. It includes directional guidance, which is mission, vision, values, and goals, some of which I have a preview for you guys of today. Includes an interpretive plan for the region, so how we're going to highlight stories that are already being told. A resource inventory, of course, not comprehensive. That's a very, very large region. Eventually, maybe we will have a full resource inventory, but kind of a highlights reel. It will include a business and partnership structure, a framework for ongoing tribal collaboration, a marketing and branding plan, and then an implementation plan. So how we're going to make all of that happen. So who's actually making this plan? Obviously, I'm not writing this entire thing myself. That would be a very boring plan. The most important people that are working on this plan are the public. It's anyone who cares about our coastline or our shorelines is helping to drive the effort and determine what the heritage area will look like. So we are doing a lot of public outreach, a lot of listening to try to figure out what that community need is. Because as I mentioned, NHAs are a really flexible framework, so they can respond to locally identified needs. So that has been the major part of our management planning to date, is trying to identify those local needs. So we at the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation are, as the local coordinating entity, are facilitating that outreach and compiling and doing the boring writing of the management plan. We also have a steering committee convened to provide expertise and advice. We have a number of working groups that are responsible for each of those individual elements of the management plan. I know we have at least one of our working group members on this call today, so thank you, Greg, for your work. We also have a tribal working group convened. I mentioned that there are 18 federally recognized tribes within the heritage area, so we've convened an advisory group of tribal members to provide input and advice on basically the entire plan, but especially on that tribal collaboration framework. And we also work with anchor organizations who are local partners, a number of which we have in Thurston County, to help guide public engagement, make sure we're getting the right people to the table for these conversations, and helping to share information with their communities. Because of course we know, even though we are a statewide organization, we are not experts in each and every one of our 13 counties in the heritage area. So we are really relying on our partners and friends to help make sure that we're talking to the right people. So planning activities to date, what have we done so far? Like I said, a lot of what we've been doing is listening, but now we are getting into that phase where we're taking that public input and turning it into plans. So as I mentioned, we've convened a steering committee and working groups. Those have all been meeting for about a year at this point. In the spring, we hosted 6 public workshops and focus groups. I know some folks on this call attended workshops and focus groups, so thank you so much for your input on those. We're going to have some of that to share back with you today. We've conducted surveys. We've done a mapping exercise that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but to try to identify places along the shoreline that really mean a lot to Washingtonians. We've conducted, that should say, 100+ individual interviews, so lots of one-on-one phone calls. We've recruited and worked with those anchor organizations that I mentioned. And I should say for Thurston County, in case anyone's on the phone for these, thank you so much to our anchors for your county, which are Experience Olympia and Beyond, the Olympia Historical Society and Bigelow House Museum, the Port of Olympia, and the South Sound Maritime Heritage Association. So we really appreciate your work so far in making sure that people have a chance to share their thoughts about the heritage area. So overall, we have about 76 planning team members. I think that's a little fluid, but certainly a big planning team, and 1,000+ volunteer hours to date. And that's only so far. We still have another 6 months to go in the creation of this management plan. So I'm going to pause for a quick second before I go into the next section, which is about kind of what we've learned so far through that listening, and just see if anyone has any questions about what I've gone over so far. I know that's been a lot of information very quickly. You are also welcome to save your questions for the end, and I can we'll have certainly some time for Q&A then. Okay, I'm going to assume that means, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tamara.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I don't see any questions at this time.
Great. I'm going to just take that to mean that I did a very good job of explaining everything and you all get it perfectly, so thanks. Okay, so this is the fun part. This is kind of what we learned through all of our public outreach. Well, public outreach so far. So as I mentioned, we hosted a series of workshops, surveys, focus groups, and we asked really similar questions of over 500, I think actually over 600 folks who live and work or play within this heritage area. One of the biggest questions that we ask everyone is what makes Washington's maritime heritage unique? Because of course that is what makes us a heritage area. I think it's really telling that the #1 answer, these are ranked in order of how frequent the responses were. And I think it's really telling that the #1 answer we got for that is Native heritage and culture. That is something that makes this region very unique. It's very important to this region. And I think that's really, really important to note. So second answer was history, of course, also nature, weather, and wildlife. We got I can't tell you how many times people just said it's rainy, and that makes our region unique. And you know what? That is true. It does make our region unique, and that is something to celebrate, certainly. I would also like to highlight a lot of folks did talk about the multicultural diversity of this region. It's a big region with a lot of different cultures, and that really does make us special. Additionally, something that people identified over and over again was the working waterfronts and the maritime economy. So maritime heritage isn't just things that are happening in the past, it's things that are happening right now along the waterfront. It's a really vibrant trades that are still going on. And I think that's something that, you know, going forward, the heritage area wants to be very conscious to talk about, is that this isn't just in the past, it's not just about history, it's also about the present and the future. Eric, I do see your question. I will get back to that in a moment, because there's a funny story about that. So another question that we asked folks was, what is your favorite thing to do along the shorelines? And the top answer was walk, but also I like the second two answers that were most popular were to hang out on the beach and take in the views. People just like to be on the shoreline here. I don't think we got that. You know, you don't need to be doing some big activity. You just need to be there, and you can soak up kind of the culture and the heritage and the feeling of this region. So I think that does make this certainly a special place. We also asked folks to use one word to describe maritime culture in Washington. As you'll see, I mean, especially given those results about what makes heritage unique, probably not surprising to see diverse, varied, complex, as big and rich as big popular words to describe this region. I also love this word authentic and vibrant. Vibrant and living, I think, is very important. I also really appreciate that some people said salty. A lot of people said salty unprompted. And as I said, I really appreciate a literal answer to any question. So kind of getting into the meat of this, we did ask folks about which of these goals for our coastal region are most important to you, to really help figure out where folks would like to see the heritage area go. The top two answers were supporting tribes and local organizations in sharing their maritime heritage and drawing connections between maritime heritage and healthy shorelines. I think especially this first one about supporting tribes and local organizations speaks to the fact that there's already so much fantastic heritage work going on in this region that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We are not trying to come in and, you know, tell stories for people or duplicate efforts. We know there's already fantastic work going on, and we see the heritage area as a support for those local organizations and tribes that are already doing fantastic work, an amplifier, a platform, not someone who's trying to take over and retell those stories for you. Additionally, I think it is this drawing connections between maritime heritage and healthy shorelines came out loud and clear. People are very concerned about the environment. And this came out more in the focus groups. People are concerned about over-visitation or irresponsible visitation. And so rather than just promoting tourism, which was one of the proposed goals, we're really leaning more towards encouraging sustainable experiences, encouraging responsible visitation from residents and tourists alike. So finally, again, I'm not going to read all of these, but a question that we asked a lot of folks was, what excites you about the future of your coastal community? And I think my favorite answer I pulled out here in blue, and one of our workshop participants said, in Washington State, maritime heritage is simply integrated in our DNA. We want to share our love for the marine waters and encourage others to also love and respect them. And I think that really sums up for me a lot of what we heard, is that people in this state have a lot of pride in our maritime heritage, and we want to be able to share that and encourage others to love and respect these maritime stories and areas as well. So because we did do these workshops and focus groups and a lot of this regionally, we were able to pull out some themes and priorities for Thurston County specifically. So this is kind of what we heard from your county. People are looking for more connection to the waterfront, a desire for increased ties, not just for new residents and visitors, but also for longtime locals. People are looking for accessibility. They want to know where and where we can access the shore and experience maritime activities. Diversity, increasing diversity is also a priority for Thurston County. People really identified a need to highlight undertold stories from maritime history and also increase racial diversity in modern maritime activities and experiences. Folks also noted, and these were common themes that we heard throughout the region, a need for increased collaboration amongst different types of entities in different regions, a need for more tourism, or at least more visitation. As we talked about, that the responsible visitation came through loud and clear, and connected to that, a desire for more messaging around environmental stewardship. So how can we be responsible visitors? So let's see, Eric, I think I am going to answer your question now. So I see Eric put in a question about what are we saying to people who ask why the Maritime Heritage area stops at Pacific County instead of continuing onto the Columbia River? So that's a great question, comes up a lot. I'm going to go back to the map so folks can see what we're talking about here. So as you'll note, Pacific County, the southernmost county on the Washington shoreline, is not included in the heritage area. As I mentioned, the feasibility study was done 10 years ago in 2010, a little more than 10 years ago at this point. And at that time, there was a simultaneous push to have another heritage area along the Columbia River. And Pacific County just basically opted to join into that effort instead of the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area effort. And that effort was totally fine. That effort did stall, so that has not been moving forward as far as I know, but I think there are probably still some groups pushing for that. Pacific County, eventually, we would love to have them included. Because this was designated by an act of Congress, we would need another act of Congress to add them, unless some of the administrative requirements change in the next, in the future. So we do see that as a future goal if folks are interested in joining. And I will say there was also some concern in Pacific County about increased regulation, which is part of the reason why I always like to say we are non-regulatory, at least now 3 times in every presentation. But I think, yeah, so I think that also kind of led to their decision to opt out back in 2010. Any other questions before we jump back in? Eric, thanks for asking that. I love answering that question. Okay. Well, now I'm really excited because I think you guys are one of the first groups to see outside of the planning team to see this. But what have we done with this input? So we've been taking all of this public input, everything that we've heard about what people want and need for our shorelines, and we've been turning this into a plan for the heritage area. So you'll see on the screen now, these are our draft goals. So still draft, still wordsmithing, but the concepts are pretty clear about what we as the heritage area hope to do. So the first of our goals is to build a network. So that means bringing together cross-sector partners that are dedicated to Washington's maritime cultures, to advancing and honoring those cultures. The second is to provide support and resources to that network, and specifically to communities and tribes that are working to enhance and share maritime heritage. As we talked about earlier, there's already a lot of really, really fantastic work going on to preserve maritime heritage. I would point to Sandman Tug, and there's obviously a lot of tug projects going on with the South Sound Maritime Heritage Association. And we want to just be able to provide support and resources for that work. A third goal, which is a little more external facing, is to share more diverse stories and increase visibility of our maritime heritage, past and present. So that platform, that amplifier that we talked about earlier. We're also hoping to help encourage sustainable experiences of maritime heritage for residents and visitors alike. So that's increasing that connection and access to the water. And then finally, we will aim to preserve our region's unique maritime identity, resources, and lifeways. So we see that going through advocacy, through helping with historic preservation, and through helping to support modern maritime trades, increasing visibility of those career options so that our modern maritime lifeways can continue. So how do we hope to do all these goals? We've identified some key functions of what exactly the heritage area will do to achieve that. The first is partner support. So we want to develop resources for partners, help connect them with funding, help connect them with best practices throughout the heritage area. We want to help facilitate communication and relationship building between our partners. So our vision for this partnership structure is it's not just individual organizations connecting with us, the heritage area, it's us facilitating individual organizations learning from each other, because we know that there's already, as I've mentioned many times, so much great work going on. How can we just help replicate that and help share that information? Another key function will be around external messaging. So that really speaks to sharing those diverse stories and encouraging experiences. So we hope to centralize and promote information about what there is to do, highlight stories and some priorities that we have identified around storytelling are diversity, responsible and sustainable tourism, and maritime careers. Of course, those are not the only stories that we will be sharing, but we've identified those as some kind of early priorities for what kind of storytelling projects we will be working on. And then finally, we want to help facilitate larger platforms for partner stories and partner sites beyond just the heritage area. So how can we help get your message out there even further? And then finally, we do see ourselves playing an advocacy role for preservation of maritime resources and practices. So what does this mean for Thurston County? Hopefully, this will mean that there are more stories shared about local maritime history and culture. It will mean more support and resources for local organizations that are working to celebrate, maintain, and share that heritage. It'll mean increased collaboration with other regions for those who would like to participate. And it's opportunities to highlight maritime experiences and sites for residents and visitors alike. So hopefully more connection with the water and with maritime culture. And then also it does give you a national designation to leverage for organizations to leverage, to tie into, to connect themselves with that umbrella if that is helpful. So some additional ways that you can get involved, obviously by attending this, you're getting the intro, so that's great. But if you want to get involved in the planning, we would love to have you. You can sign up for email updates later this year, or more realistically, early next year. We're going to have a draft of that management plan for your review, and don't worry, we will create a summary so that you don't need to read a 100+ page document. We know nobody has time for that. You can engage with us on social media. We'll sometimes put questions and surveys up there. I should actually take this off. The survey is now closed, unfortunately. However, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a mapper where you can identify sites that are important to you and you would like to see kind of highlighted by the heritage area. So I will put this URL in the chat in just a minute, but I did want to give you guys just a quick little preview of the Maritime Mapper to encourage you to go check it out. So this is what the mapper looks like. As you can see, it features sites all throughout the county, and these are all user generated. So these are all things that the general public, that you have and our partners have identified as maritime sites that are important to them. So if you click on any one of these little bubbles, you'll see a little pop-up. So you'll see that someone here has added Olympia's waterfront. So some of these are really experience focused. So we originally developed this map as a way for us to learn about what was important to people, but we quickly found that once something gets added, anyone can see it and you can find really fun experiences in your own area. So we are actually, this was developed for public engagement. Well, we're planning on keeping this around because it's been a pretty fun tool. I know I have found a few fun activities on this myself, actually. So you'll see folks can add, you can filter by a bunch of different categories. But you see someone has added Olympia's waterfront here, kind of how to get there, what you can do. Folks can add links. So you'll see that this person has added an interactive map, which is awesome because now this resource can highlight another activity for folks to do. And folks, once you click on this, you'll kind of get into a bigger resource page. And folks have also been adding historic sites, so things that are no longer there, which is also very cool. So I did want to highlight this one in Thurston County, the first Puget Sound Custom House. So when the collection district of Puget Sound was organized in 1851, the first custom house in that district was located in Olympia. And you can see someone's added a historical map here, and I believe from the description that it is this one. And this was the customs house where vessel entrances and clearances were recorded, where certificates of registry were issued, and where vessels that sailed in domestic coast trading were licensed through a process of enrollment. So you can read, there's a little more information about it there. But what I think is super cool about these historic resources that folks add is that people will often add links to additional information, which can turn out to be very cool. So this person added a link to a map at the Library of Congress, which I was able to pull up here. And unfortunately, I do not have as good of a zoom as the Library of Congress does. But this little picture that you see here is actually taken from this map of the city of Olympia, this kind of bird's eye view. And I believe this is from 1851. I apologize. 1879. I knew it said it on the last slide. So I have found that this map is just a really, really interesting way to unearth some of these historical gems as well as modern experiences. And as I said, my zoom isn't as good, but I believe that the section that was the zoom in of that customs house is right about here, if y'all can see my cursor. So with that, I definitely encourage you guys to go explore the map yourself. There's way more that you can click on, way more you can learn, and also would love to hear what sites you think are important and you would like to see us highlight, because we definitely are counting on everyone here for that information. But with that, I will pause for questions. I think that was all I had prepared, and we've got about 10 minutes left. Is that right, Tamara?
Hi, yes, that is correct. So if you would like our guests to if you would please put your questions in the Q&A box up in the right-hand corner. If you're on an iPad, I'm not sure where they're at on a regular computer, then we can go through them.
Comments also welcome if you don't have questions.
There is a question from Bill Lindstrom. Maybe we've already answered this about what you're saying to people.
Yeah, I think we answered that one about Pacific.
Okay.
Time.
Oh, and first off, thank you, Alex, for that wonderful presentation. I don't think I acknowledged that. That was great.
Oh,
Learned a lot about the heritage area. I'm very excited to see the development and how it's going to play out. And I also will do my best to get involved with some of these open houses.
Oh, great. That would be wonderful.
Okay. So a question from Eric. Is there a plan yet to announce the finalized management plan next year? And when are you targeting to release the date? The release date.
That is a great question and a bit of a moving target. To be very honest with you guys, we were hoping to release it by the end of this year, at the end of December, probably for review. That's been pushed back just a little bit. We want to make sure that we're being very careful and listening to everyone as much as possible in creating this plan. And as I'm sure most people on this call know, collaborative projects sometimes take a little longer than planned in order to really incorporate everyone's thoughts. So we think we are going to be releasing that to the public at the end of January of 2022.
Thank you.
It looks like there's a question in the chat about how can the Thurston County Historic Commission be a part of this work?
Yes, well, I will say you're already being a part of this work just by everyone attending this meeting and asking questions and giving comments. So at this time, we are we're developing the partnership structure, so what this will look like, and we do hope that once the heritage area is officially launched, you guys become partners or members or however we figure that out. Until then, we are still, if you guys are interested in becoming an anchor organization, which is not the only commitment, is that you help get the word out about the heritage area. We would love to have you guys on board for that. And I'd be happy to send someone additional information about that after the call.
Yes, Alex, this is Bill Lindstrom.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a question. The one that was passed on was not the question I asked when they said that it was answered before. No, the question I have is, does the Maritime Heritage area replace the former marine sanctuary? that was established in the 1990s, or does it work in conjunction with this entity?
That's a great question. No, it does not replace the pre-existing marine sanctuary. It just is an added layer of designation. We do work with, partner, listen to. I think the idea is that this is not taking the place of or replacing any of the existing designations or protections on this area. We are just collaborators.
Thank you.
Alex, this is Rob Kirkwood. Our question would be is there a way to pass this video on to our friends?
Certainly. I actually just noticed that it was recording. I didn't realize that, but yes, absolutely. Please feel free to pass this recording on, or I can also share, we have a recorded intro presentation from earlier in the year. It is a little out of date. We've been needing to update that. So maybe better to share this one.
All right, thank you.
So it looks like we have another mention from Chuck Eric saying he's working, a full disclosure, he's working with Chuck Fowler on a book about maritime history in Washington. And he'd love if anyone wanted to share some hidden gems or favorite stories of places in the South Sound. I'm gonna post this so it's actually goes out to everyone, but he has his email address here. So for all of you on this call, actually, Eric, can you go ahead and share that with everyone on the call so they have your information? You sent that to the host and panelists.
And Eric, I know we're all very much looking forward to seeing that book. I know you've been hard at work at that.
Okay, and then we have another question from Jeremy Davis. What are you saying to people who ask? Jeremy, what's your question?
I think that's the Pacific County one again.
Yeah, Tamara, that was already asked, and I did go ahead and share Eric's message with everyone for him.
Oh, okay. It just keeps showing that one question for the Columbia River. It's just kind of funny. So we're about at the end of our meeting here. Do we have any additional questions?
Stop the screen share there.
Let's see if I can pop myself back up here. Woo! Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you very much to Alex for taking time on a Saturday morning to join us and share this great project. We're very excited to see what's going to happen with the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation and with the Maritime Heritage. Can you tell me the full name again?
I know it's really hard. I mess it up. So I mess it up all the time. The Maritime Washington National Heritage Area. I usually just call it the Heritage Area, if that helps at all.
Perfect. Perfect. And then I believe I'll just hand this over to Grace. She's going to wrap us up.
Okay, hello again. So I would just also like to add my thank you to Alex. That was amazing. And I learned so much, and just thank you, thank you, thank you. That was just jam-packed with like such interesting kind of information and tidbits. So appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I would just like to also give a special shout out to our chair, Rob Kirkwood. He is definitely our fearless leader and just keeps everything moving along. I would also like to thank Jeremy and Sonia. I don't know what we would do without you guys. That was also a super fantastic presentation about the grants. You know, we're doing another round and it's a yearly thing. So please, please, please reach out if you have any questions or are interested in applying or would like to discuss that further. And I would also really love to thank the Historic Commission members who were on the subcommittee to help kind of set this up. So Sandy and Tamara, thank you, thank you, thank you too. Just you guys are fantastic. And I would just want to say thank you to everyone who participated today. We really, really appreciate you taking time out on a a Saturday morning to come and join us in this, especially with virtual presentations. I know that that's not how everyone, likes to do things, but just really thank you so much for attending. And like I mentioned before at the beginning, this will be, since this meeting has been recorded, we will make sure to put that information up on our website, and also reach out if you would like a link and we can send that to you as well. And with that, we are at 11 o'clock. So I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of their Saturday, and hope to talk to you all soon.
Bye. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, thank you.
Right.